Good morning, this is Marshall Davis. This episode covers the 23rd saying of Jesus in the Gospel of Thomas. Jesus says, "I shall choose you, one from 1,000 and two from 10,000, and they will stand as a single one." Here's a slightly different translation. "I shall choose you, one out of 1,000, two out of 10,000, and you shall stand as a single one." This verse deals with the rarity of spiritual awakening and the nature of spiritual awakening. Now, in discussing the nature of awakening, I will explore the three spiritual stages of life in relationship to awakening. But first, I'll talk about the rarity of what is called spiritual awakening or enlightenment or self-realization or salvation or whatever term you want to use. Historically, spiritual awakening has been seen as rare, once in a generation, if that. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, "Whenever there is a decline in righteousness and an increase in unrighteousness, at that time I manifest myself on earth." Now that does not specifically say how often the manifestation happens, but it implies that it's a long time. The Baha'i faith says that manifestations of God, what other traditions call incarnations or avatars, occur typically every 1,000 years. In Buddhist cosmology, Buddhas appear infrequently and only after the teachings of a previous Buddha have faded from the world. Christianity says there's only been one incarnation in all of history, Jesus Christ. Islam says there are no incarnations. That would be blasphemy. There are only prophets, of which Muhammad was the last and the greatest, the seal of the prophets. Hinduism and Buddhism say the avatars of Buddhas are rare. Jesus says they're not as rare as you may think. He says they are rare, but not as rare as you may think. He says, "I shall choose you one out of 1,000 and two out of 10,000, and they shall stand as a single one." Now, here he could be talking simply about choosing followers, in which case that has nothing to do with enlightenment or awakening. But today, almost 1 out of 3 humans profess to be followers of Jesus. I think that he's talking about people who have woken up, those who know that they are one. And that's why he continues with the words that those who are chosen stand as one. Now, I've explained before that the word stand in the Gospel of Thomas is a synonym for awaken, because when you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do is stand up. Jesus is talking about spiritual awakening. He says that 1 out of 1,000 people wake up to reality. That is 0.1% or 1/10 of 1%. So that's rare. Then he says 2 out of 10,000, which is 0.02%, 2/100ths of a percent. That's even more rare. But I don't think we should get hung up and try to calculate these percentages literally. Jesus is not talking literally. He was not a statistician. That's clear from the fact that he gives 2 different percentages here. 1 out of 1,000, 2 out of 10,000. There's a big difference between those 2 figures. So he's not to be taken literally. He's not quoting statistics here. He's making a point. A spiritual awakening is rare, but not that rare. There are still a lot of people. And it seems to be not as rare as it used to be. It used to be that a person went into training and spent their lives in spiritual disciplines and service to a tradition and a spiritual master or teacher for decades, and then maybe spiritual awakening would occur. Now it seems that spiritual awakening is happening much more frequently to a lot more people. I think that is because of access to teachings through not only books, but through the internet, and the ease of communicating with people on the other side of the world by means of Zoom and by means of videos and podcasts and everything. So it's the access to spiritual teaching which I think is causing this. I know that a lot of people have contacted me and said that spiritual awakening is happening to them. So it seems like it's happening quite a bit. Now, not everyone who awakens becomes a teacher. Most are silent. They don't even try to communicate because they know it's impossible to communicate this. In fact, I think that's probably the most normal reaction or response. As the Tao Te Ching says, those who know do not speak, those who speak do not know. But some know, and they try to communicate the best they can, even though they know that they really can't with words. In any case, spiritual awakening is not just for the spiritual superstars, the super spiritual athletes, not just for Indian yogis living in caves or lamas living on a Tibetan mountaintop. This is for everyone. And this is happening to all sorts of ordinary people. Jesus is saying that it's not commonplace, but neither is it so rare that there's no hope for ordinary people. That's the meaning of the first half of this saying. I shall choose you 1 out of 1,000 and 2 out of 10,000. The second part of the saying is this: and they shall stand as a single one. Now that is a straightforward statement of non-duality. We wake up and realize we are one. We stand as a single one, that there is only one. And when awakening happens, we take our stand. We dwell in and we live in that oneness. This realization, this standing as one, is the natural culmination and the purpose of human life. And this is a good place to talk about the phases that we go through in our human lives and the realization of oneness. There are 3 stages, I'll call them, but stages is really an inaccurate word because we don't have to go through anything to be one, because we're one by nature and we're always one. We just don't realize we are one. So it seems like we go through something, 3 stages of what I'm calling them, to realize this. The first is childhood. When we are a baby, we are one. We are born one. We are one with our mother in the womb before we are born. And when we are born, we are still one with our mother and the environment. We just don't consciously know that we are one. That's how at one with oneness we are. But then as we age, the first couple of years of life, we gradually become aware of others. We realize that we are apart from the mother and other people and the environment. So we move from being one to being one among many. The process of growing up is becoming aware of ourselves as separate beings. In Christian terminology, we could call this the fall. The fall into separateness, which gives rise to a sense of alienation and anxiety. Christians tend to use the word sin here, which at its root really is talking about separation from God. But the truth is that because God is omnipresent, we can never really be separate from God, but it feels like we are separate. That's the human condition. We think of ourselves as separate creatures. We've eaten of the tree of duality, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. We feel like we have been expelled from paradise, the paradise of childhood oneness with God and with creation. This sense of being a separate entity is the natural and normal process of growing up. All children go through it, and there's nothing wrong with it. We are being itself, but we become aware that we are also separate beings. Now, we do not stop being, capital B, being itself, but we begin to identify as separate human beings. In the process of identifying with our separate human nature, we forget our original nature. We forget our true nature. We forget what we really are. And this spiritual amnesia is the problem. That's the barrier to spiritual awakening. So at first we are one, then we are one among many, which is often expressed as one against the many. I'm reading a novel now by Swedish author Fredrik Backman entitled Us Against You, which explores this very well. Everyone goes through those two stages, oneness and separateness, but not everyone moves on to the third stage, which is self-realization. Realizing that we are both one and many. One in the many. Non-duality is what it's called. This is eating from the tree of life. Throughout the stage of separation, we never completely forget this, our original oneness. It's always there in the back of our mind. It feels like deja vu, like a memory that we can't quite recall. This is always present behind our everyday consciousness, waiting to come to the forefront. Spiritual awakening brings this background awareness of oneness to the forefront of consciousness. And after oneness is remembered, the rest of life is about integrating this into our lives and abiding in this and living out of this, from this reality. Humans have created a separate reality for themselves as individual selves. And we have believed that that individual role is what we are. We think that is all we are. It's like an actor who is playing a character in a play, who in getting into the part forgets that it's just a role. They come to believe they really are the part that they are playing. Now, if this happened to an actor friend of ours, we would think they were mentally ill. Yet that is the common condition of humanity. We are playing roles in the drama of life and have forgotten what we were before we took on those roles. Spiritual awakening is waking up from the role. Now, the character in the play does not wake up. That person is a fiction. There's no one to wake up. We wake up from the role. The role falls away. The lights come on. The play is revealed as a fiction. The story falls away. We remember what we really are, and we think, how did I ever forget this? The whole process of forgetting and awakening itself is also oneness. Even forgetfulness is not really a problem. It did not change what we really are. This is one experiencing itself as separate ones. the one experiencing itself as the many. Out of this identification with the many comes something very good. Comes compassion and love, unconditional love. We see that others are us, and for that reason we love others as ourselves, because they literally are ourselves. Even our enemies are recognized as us. They just don't remember who they are, who we are. And this awareness is the source of ethics, non-dual ethics. So morality is not about obeying commandments or rules. It's not even about following moral principles. It's about knowing our oneness with all people, all creatures, entire universe, and acting from that oneness. Oneness means equality for all and justice for all. It means generosity, not only in our personal charitable giving, but in our government spending. We, the people, are one, and we stand as one. That oneness is what it means to be a follower of Jesus. Jesus says, I shall choose you 1 out of 1,000 and 2 out of 10,000. You shall stand as a single one. We stand as one. We act accordingly in all of our actions because we realize we are one. Spiritual awakening is waking up to this reality. So you see, spiritual awakening is the solution to all of humankind's problems. All these political problems that we're having in my nation here now. The spiritual life is not running away from these or hiding from problems of the world. It's a solution to the problems of the world. And that is it for today. Grace and peace to you.